and welcome back to Capitol Hill Ocean Talk on oceanslive.org. I'm your host, Kate Thompson, with NOAA's Office of National Marine Sanctuaries, coming to you live from the museum in Washington, D.C., with our final broadcast from Capitol Hill Ocean Week 2014. We've had some amazing guests on our program this week, covering ocean issues ranging from indigenous cultures to sustainable seafood. For our last show, I am so happy to welcome to the studio Her Deepness, National Geographic Explorer-in-Residence, Sylvia Earle. Also with us is Richard Vevers, Executive Director of Catlin's Seaview Survey and CEO of Underwater Earth. Next, we have Dr. James Lindholm, who is the James W. Rote Distinguished Professor of Marine Science and Policy at California State University, Monterey Bay. And finally, there's Mitchell Tartt. He's our Acting Chief of the Office of National Marine Sanctuaries Conservation Science Division. Sylvia, thank you so much. And gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today on Capitol Hill Ocean Talk.
Thank you.
So we just saw a panel on blue media and communicating science, so I thought that we'd kind of get into a more fun, informal discussion about the importance of communicating science and research about ocean issues that we do. So Sylvia, you're a National Geographic Explorer-in-Residence. Well, National Geographic's been communicating science for over 100 years now.
126 years.
Yeah, right. So what does it mean for you to be an explorer with them?
Well, it's a great place to be because they really respect exploration, research, conservation, and communication. It's a great media organization, among other things.
You were a female pioneer. We all, as females, look up to you and what you've done through the years. Since the 50s, I believe you said you started diving. You've been in deep submersibles and diving all across the world. How have you worked to share the opportunities for women in this field? How have you seen it change over the years?
Well, it never occurred to me that it wasn't okay to get out in the ocean, to be a scientist, to do whatever, you know. James Miller, who was the head of the project called Tartt back in 1970, the time when there were teams of aquanauts living underwater, there came a moment when they had to decide whether to accept women or not. There were no women astronauts in 1970. I mean, today it's expected that men and women both will be up there in the sky. But the idea of going down into the ocean, well, some of us applied not knowing that nobody expected us to, but James Miller, after reflecting, he said, well, half the fish are female. I guess we could put up with a few women. And when you think about it, you know, half the fish, half the whales, half the dolphins, half the birds that fly, they side by side do their thing. And increasingly, it's accepted that it's okay, that women can climb mountains, we can drive cars, we can fly airplanes, and there should be no particular reason why we can't take off into the ocean. You know?
Well, you've definitely been an inspiration for me. So you've been diving for such a long time, and the ocean has changed so much over the years. What are some of the things that you have seen?
Well, since I first began exploring the ocean, there's been some wonderful breakthroughs. We've learned more about the ocean than in the last few decades than during all preceding human history. It's partly because of the new technologies that give us the capacity to see where things we couldn't see, to go where we couldn't go. And we're still handicapped by a very small fleet of submersibles. When you think how many airplanes there are in the sky, how many boats, cars, trucks, whatever it is from here up, but from here down, yeah, there's only one underwater laboratory where scientists can go and perform research using the ocean as a laboratory. Well, back in the 70s, there were a number of them. They thought seemed at the time, and I hope the time will come again, when this is going to be considered the obvious way to really get insight into the ocean by taking scientists into the ocean with permanent stations and also with a lot more submarines than we have today. I love underwater robots. I think they're great. But it's like another tool in the box. You don't throw away any tools, you keep them all and you use them when the time is right for those various ways of doing what you want to do.
What you just mentioned earlier about living under the ocean and Aquarius. We spoke with Fabienne Cousteau from Mission 31 today, and you mentioned technology. Yeah, we just talked to him today. Mentioned technology. Well, Richard Beavers is here, and you have this amazing technology to show the world the ocean. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yes, well, the project initially started as a conservation exercise because there's so much going on in the ocean that is completely out of sight and out of mind. The biggest issue is so few people get to experience the ocean. Something like 1 in 1,000 people has ever been diving. So I looked at the issue, and because I'm from an advertising background, I saw this as an advertising issue. And you can solve it simply with technology and promotion. So we decided to take the concept that Street View, Google Street View had taken above water and take it below water, inventing a camera that could take 360 images that would allow people to go virtually diving. So that's what we did, and over the last, I think it's 2 years, just under 2 years, we've covered 19 countries so far, on a big global exercise to reveal the oceans.
Wow, so I hear you're headed to the Florida Keys National Marine Sanctuary here pretty soon.
Yes, so this is our first proper collaboration with NOAA, and it's going to be a great exercise. So we're looking forward to that one.
Very cool.
And Sylvia's joining us, and Mitchell's joining us on that one.
Nice. Well, Dr. Lindholm, you've been in the Florida Keys lots and lots and lots of times, saturated yourself in the Aquarius habitat multiple times, and of course been diving all over the world. So technology like Richard is going to be bringing to the Florida Keys, how important is that to communicate what's going on?
I think we need the images. You know, I've given a number of talks in which the subtitle before the colon is beneath the blue, because we really, you know, most of humanity sees blue, and they don't understand the huge diversity of what's going on underneath. And technology, because we're not prepared to breathe underwater ourselves, gives us the opportunity to do that.
Says who?
Fair point. So I think, you know, technology enables us to tell the stories that we need to tell.
Well, Mitchell, you're Director of Conservation Science for National Marine Sanctuaries, and the Florida Keys National Marine Sanctuary is one of those amazing places within our system that Richard and Dr. Earle and yourself are going to go down and do this street view for. Why is that such a big deal? I mean, I know the reefs are kind of degraded down there. Why Florida Keys? Why is that big thing?
The Florida Keys were actually starting for operational convenience. This partnership came up to us pretty quickly in the last several months, and we wanted to look for a place where we could take this technology, take advantage of it, and take it out to our communities as quickly as possible. But in looking at it programmatically, this opportunity is something that is relevant to every national marine sanctuary. It allows us to engage communities from kindergartners through graduate school level to local governments and state governments in ways that I think give us a different conversation. And so that's something we want to do over the course of the next year.
Doesn't it also establish baseline data against which you can measure and demonstrate and document change over time?
It does, and it's something that we're going to build it into what we call a Sentinel Site initiative, where we can have anybody from a local scientist collecting this data up through ourselves, collecting in a more robust way, but all of these data are comparable to demonstrate change and ecosystem understanding, and try to create that as a different conversation.
And Aquarius has been around for 22 years on that same location.
Yep.
So just with the hundreds of scientists who have invested the best of what they've got, you've got a baseline that goes back at least that far. Plus, you know, some of us have been diving the Florida Keys for 50 years.
Right.
And so you can even extend it back into
Absolutely.
Not geological time, but
and some of the locations that we're picking are some of the methodology prescribes for a 2-kilometer transect underwater that's explorable, like on the Google Street View model, and some are just based on a tripod base where you take a spherical image, and those we're going to try to connect with our long-term monitoring stations around. Georeferenced, exactly. So they're specifically located, and we can actually have historical data sets combined now and comparable with this technology, and that's a nice dynamic. Yeah.
And for me, it's all about scalability. So if we can get people who are just keen underwater photographers and tool them up to be able to take this kind of imagery rather than it's just one team going around the world, then we can suddenly reveal places on a massive scale.
And we couldn't do this. We couldn't do this when I started diving.
Right.
The technology did not. cameras
Yes.
did not exist. We're still working with black and white film.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but it's true.
And some of this, it allows for the science is important, but I think the key for us, not the key, another angle to this is the engagement side. And allowing for folks to understand, to get aroused, to get interested in what we're talking about, and want them to have this information-informed decision-making, right? So not only do you get informed decision-making, but you create a desire for informed decision-making. You create an appreciation for informed decision-making. That creates a demand for informed decision-making. And if we can create that demand in the public because we've communicated the science effectively and the public requires informed decision-making, that's, I think, where we start to get the changes that we want to see.
Well, you can't care if you don't know.
Right.
Right, right.
That's right.
And there's nothing more powerful than powerful imagery. I just showed Mitchell where we went 3 weeks ago, just to go back to one of the sites that we visited in 2012 on the Great Barrier Reef, where it had just been hit by a Category 5 cyclone. And you had this exact 360-degree image, which you could see before and after. And it just suddenly communicates what is going on and it explains it in a completely different way.
Well, I think taking the technology and using it to be able to communicate this science is extremely, extremely important. As you said earlier, Sylvia, things have changed so much from the black and white photographs to this whole 3D world where a person can go on their computer and see around them all the way to say, oh my gosh, you see the grouper there to that coral there. It's amazing to me. It's really fascinating.
Yes.
Yeah, right. Oh my gosh.
duct tape involved.
I can't even imagine duct tape not being in the toolbox. But James, I know that in a lot of the Aquarius missions that you have been on, you've communicated just like Fabienne did with us, in multiple languages. We've had people with you communicating to the places. So why is it so key for students and children to be involved in this communication? Why would they care? And that's a great shot right there of you doing live communication with your red cap on. We had those on earlier today when we were talking to Fabienne. But again, getting back, I mean, you're in the university world. Why is it so important for students to get away from their video games and to care about the ocean?
Well, I think the longer I've been doing this, the more I've come to realize that communication is one of our central problems that we face now, both in the scientific community. We need to do a better job of communicating. And consequently, we need to train the next generation of science to communicate better as well. And so getting them early understanding how to tell a story and how to tell a story to different audiences. You have to be nimble. We can't just write a peer-reviewed journal anymore. You have to write that journal, but then you have to communicate to the same story to 3 or 4 very different audiences.
Right.
And always tell the truth.
That's exactly right. You have
Well,
to,
if you're going to tell a story, you say, well, now we're going to make something up.
right.
We're going to tell the
Right.
truth by telling a story.
That's
But
right.
part of the problem with science communication historically has been that the lines get blurry.
That's right.
And I mean, people believe in mermaids because there's been,
That's right.
the attempt to blur the lines. Well, the best story is always the real story, the true story. What's more exciting than being alive on a little blue speck in the universe of unfriendly options? I mean, it's a miracle. So, and getting kids to jump in and just feel that how exceptional it is to be a human being.
That's absolutely right, and I agree entirely. And one of the things that a lot of people suggest that communicating is dumbing down of science, and in fact, we don't want to do that. What we're asking them is more. We're asking more of these students to be able to tell the robust scientific story and tell it accurately to these different audiences. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
I think on the truth side, I really appreciate that comment. So in my mind, the idea for going to youth really young, right? Telling the truth requires conviction, right? Conviction beyond measure, because you will be faced with challenges that are unprecedented. I think the
Imagine
heated
being a
topics are
tuna
now.
fish.
Right.
Just imagine what
I know.
it's like.
Try not to. But to develop that conviction takes time, right? So working with children allows them the time and the experience to go through conversations and battles to understand the value of the truth and to hold on to that truth and to always tell the truth. That takes time.
And to keep trying to discover the next truth, next bit of information. And there's so much, we've only seen 5% of the ocean.
Right.
I mean, kids who think it's all been done, they need to think again.
Yep.
I mean, it's not just looking at space. Of course, there are a lot of problems and issues and explorations there, but this part of the universe rocks. Earth. What a miracle. And we still are handicapped by not having access to most of it. We're still, nibbling around the upper 100 feet or so. And we need to really explore right down to the full ocean depth, with the same kind of enthusiasm and excitement that we invest in other directions.
So we're talking about youth just now. The panel earlier was on media, and the general public really is at that 5th to 7th grade level in understanding in what we do. And so oftentimes science is up here in the clouds, and people don't understand what that scientists are saying. And so we really need to take that and, like you said, not dumb it down, but make it
Clear.
and interpret it
Clearly
for the average public. So, Richard, I think your technology really helps us to get a better view of the issues and what goes on. So,
yes, and for me, it's about starting a conversation, because there's some really basic learning that isn't out there about the role of the oceans, especially. And that's what we want to do is start that conversation and then work out the best way of communicating how important the oceans are, how important it is that we treat them so that they are healthy, because people just don't understand the relationship to weather, to our water supply, to our food supply, to breathing. Exactly.
the basics.
And everybody on the planet should know that.
Right. Well, everyone on the planet. The ocean is completely connected because it is one ocean. And we here in the United States impact England, impact Japan, just as much as they impact us. So it's very important for all of us to understand what we do every day in our backyards, regardless if we live on the ocean or whether we live in Kansas.
You may never see the ocean or touch the ocean, but the ocean touches you every day. Every time you take a breath, every time you take a shower, every time you do anything. The planet works because it's blue.
Exactly. So I'm really excited to see the results of this expedition you guys are going to do with your technology. I'm really excited to see what ends up happening with it. So thanks so much for being with me today to chat about the importance of communicating science and making sure that we do it in a way that everyone understands their impact and the ocean's impact on them. So thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, thank you to everyone this week that's joined me on Capitol Hill Ocean Talk, and then also with us for Capitol Hill Ocean Week 2014. The final rule establishing the new sanctuary nomination process, announced by John Podesta in his keynote address on Tuesday, will publish tomorrow in the Federal Register. That means the nomination process is officially open for new potential national marine sanctuaries. Our website, with all the information you need to nominate new sanctuaries, will go live tomorrow morning at nominate.noaa.gov. Remember, this is your opportunity to protect your treasured marine and Great Lakes places and ensure that they are conserved for future generations to come. The National Marine Sanctuary Foundation also just released their Sounds of the Sanctuaries playlist for World Oceans Month, a collection of 14 songs themed around our National Marine Sanctuary System. Check it out at nmsfocean.org/oceansummer14. That's it for us here on Capitol Hill Ocean Talk. Thank you for watching us all week at Capitol Ocean Week 2014, and be sure to stay tuned for the final panel of the symposium. Thanks once again to the museum for hosting us, and to the National Marine Sanctuary Foundation for making it all possible. We will see you next year at Capitol Hill Ocean Week right here on oceanslive.org.